are live to the Warcraft Midnight Q&A. I'm Randy Jordan, and I go by Kyvax on the Warcraft community team.
Is it like laggy?
We
His voice
recently
is
asked
like
WoW
desynced.
players on forums and social media sites to submit questions, and you delivered. So we've got three leaders.
That's on
of
their
the
end.
WoW
I'm going to try to
development
reload,
team
but
here.
see if they're
Team here. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ian Hasikostas, Game Director on WoW.
I think it's on their end.
Hi, my name's Paul Cubitt. I'm Associate Game Director on World of Warcraft, working on the Midnight expansion.
Hi, I'm Maria Hamilton. I'm the Design Director for WoW.
We got a lot of questions, and I want to get right to them. We're going to start with some housing questions. So, Cyglaive on the forums asked, it actually said, during a Gamescom interview, it was mentioned that Horde players would be able to use Alliance-style housing exteriors and vice versa. However, in a recent blog post, it was stated that the housing styles would be faction-locked. Can we get clarification on that?
Yes, there was a bit of confusion definitely around the Gamescom messaging there. As we just saw in the deep dive video,
The audio's
the
low.
neighborhoods ultimately are anchored in specific locations in the world. If you are in the Alliance neighborhood, you are on the outskirts of Stormwind in the Elwyn area. If you are in the Horde neighborhood, you're on the outskirts of Orgrimmar. While private neighborhoods can be cross-faction, you can have your guildmates, you can have your friends of the opposite faction move in, the general setting, the exterior houses there are going to reflect the location. The
okay.
NPCs that are wandering around the neighborhood, again, are anchored
So it's
in
like
that
an
place
HOA.
in the world. Maybe something that we revisit down the line, but for the time being,
They want everything to
if you're
match.
in the Horde neighborhood, the home exteriors need to reflect the Horde aesthetic. Take that up with the Orgrimmar HOA if there's a concern.
Nice.
Speaking of things wandering around, a player named Hey Hey on the EU Spanish forums asked, I know there are plans for combat pets to appear in housing. Are there also plans for hunter pets?
Yes, so pets are something in general that we're working towards. At release in Midnight, battle pets won't be available to be placed just yet. I think something that we need to solve to make that work on the engineering side is actually making sure that they can path and move comfortably around whatever configuration of objects you might happen to place in your home or in your yard. So we are planning on delivering that shortly after launch.
Okay.
Alongside that, we do want to add the ability to place your mounts in your mount collection. If you want to, have them on a hitching post in your yard, that's something we'd love to deliver as well. Hunter pets are probably trickier. Those are character specific, and housing is an account-wide system really tied to your warband. And so, pulling from specific characters' hunter pet stable would probably be much more challenging. I'll never say never, but that's not in the plans currently.
I asked Ian that same question in person in Germany.
Jerky on
He
Reddit
told me that
asked,
same thing
How
like a month
will
ago.
the trading post
Nice.
housing items work? Let's say there's a chair on the trading post. Will we have to buy the chair multiple times if we want a set of 4 in our house?
Okay.
Will there be a 10-chair bundle for a set price? Or will the purchase give us infinite amount of chairs?
This is something we spent a good amount of time thinking about. There's going to be lots of ways that you can get decor starting
Is
in
it
11 through
decor
7 and then into
decor?
Midnight through achievements, through crafting, through completing just the campaign of Midnight and so
Gotta be
on.
decor.
And we ran into a lot of the same questions that you asked, the person who asked this question.
Yes.
Yes, and for that reason, we're actually just not going to have them on the trading post. At least for the first few months, there should be plenty of other ways that you can start gathering decor for your house. And then you won't have to make
I'm
that
pretty sure
hard
it's
decision.
decor.
Do I want this chair versus this cool mount or cool transmog?
Another question comes from Xanther on the forums. Xanther asked, how will outdoor housing plots work? If I want a certain plot and it's taken, do I have the option to try another instance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Essentially, when you want to move house, you're just going to say, yep, it's time to move. It's all going to get packaged up for you. Paul likes to say that a mage comes along and puts it into an arcane ball for you. Don't know if that's actually,
That is what happens.
Oh, totally. Okay. And then you can go to wherever you'd like to deploy your house, and it just comes right back out of the bubble, set up exactly how you had it, so you can move around neighborhoods, you can move around different plots within a neighborhood. Yep, totally transportable.
Right on. Celia on the German WoW forums asked, will there be updates to the guild system in Midnight?
I think most of the updates we see to the guild system are going to be in the form of neighborhoods. We expect to see a lot of guilds, especially guilds who are playing a lot actively with one another, to build guild neighborhoods where you'll be able to live alongside one another. So instead of the typical ways you're interacting with one another in WoW, whether that's raid nights, Mythic Plus nights, PvP, whatever it is you choose to do, you might also just start running into one another in the morning when you go out to get the paper. And so really looking forward to seeing guilds build stronger connections based on those guild neighborhoods.
I think the other systemic trappings of the guild system are something that we know is definitely due for a refresh. Guilds obviously have been there since the beginning, and there's definitely room for improvement. Our focus for Midnight, though, really was on the housing integration side of it, and the rest of the system is something we hope to get back to in the near future.
A highly upvoted question on Reddit comes from Chilligok. Chilligok asked, will we ever get another texture update for older races? Especially compared to Earthen, the hairstyles are outdated now.
We do have a couple which are coming in Midnight. As you complete the Amani campaign in Zulaman, you will be able to unlock some cool cosmetics for Darkspear trolls, some cool hairstyles, and actually
I
skin
want the
colors
old
as well.
styles
And so
back.
if you have any Darkspear trolls on your account, you play through
Am
the
I
campaign,
old?
you'll be able to get some cool customizations. And this is one of the ways that we do try to approach this.
I want
is
the old
as it's
models
appropriate
back.
to the story. We'll look for
Crazy.
cool ways that you can integrate cosmetics into your own character. That's not the only way that we might do this, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's something that we see as an issue to chip away at over time. We want to roll out extra customizations, hairstyles, you name it, for the existing races to continue to bring them up to parity with the very newest options. It's not something we're able to do all at once, but particularly where it makes sense and fits the story, we're excited to keep adding them. Our long-term goal is to get to a place where every race, whether brand new or one of the original ones, has roughly the same number of options.
I want old animations too.
So, as
That'd
we
be
just
nice.
saw in the deep dive and going back to the Gamescom announcement, we have a system coming called Prey. And I have a couple of questions here about Prey.
Okay.
System of Cells on Reddit asked, will the Prey system make all mobs in the target zone more challenging, or only the Prey target plus world quests unique to that
That's a
system?
good question.
Yeah,
Probably
it
just
will
the prey target.
affect everything in the zone for you.
Oh.
So if you have chosen to go into the zone chasing a nightmare mode prey, everything is going to be much harder for you. It's
Oh.
based on an aura that's put on you.
Holy
sort of like
crap.
it's almost like an affliction in a way, or a torment. And as you move through that zone, it's going to be harder.
Wow, I didn't know
The
that.
player in Prey is on their own?
They are when they finally wear down that boss, if it's in one of the harder modes. Then you need to go mano a mano. If it's in the normal mode, then the rest of the players in the vicinity can help you out.
Gotcha. The WoW creator Fandy asked, is the
Fandy?
Prey system planned to be a part of the World Row in Vaults?
Yeah, in one way or another. As we build our expansion, one of the last things that comes in is specifics on rewards. So we don't have the specific details now, but when we do look at Prey, we look at it as similar in difficulty and sort of player activity to the types of things that you do in Delves. And Delves do take up that bottom row of the World Row in the Great Vault as well. So we do expect, if you're running Prey, you're going to see better rewards in that row in one way or another.
Cool.
Good. I want to get to one of the most highly upvoted questions we saw across all channels. This is from Weird Dandom Ally on Reddit. And that goes, any plans to rejuvenate the glyph system? All classes could take advantage of it for class visual customizations like warlocks have with their pets and druids with their forms.
Yeah, so there isn't a glyph overhaul planned for Midnight at launch in particular, but the general question of more customization for spell visuals, transforms, things along those lines, that's one that we're also very excited about and always looking to offer more customization, more cosmetic self-expression where possible. And the glyph system is a great vehicle for this. It's not the only vehicle, but where it makes sense, that's definitely one of the avenues we would use.
Speaking of highly upvoted questions, we got a lot from the PvP community. I want to ask a few of those. So starting with Keth Cup on Reddit, the question is, do you have any plans on making PvP less daunting for new players?
We absolutely do, yeah. We're really excited to introduce a new feature called Training Grounds.
Oh, right,
This is a
yeah.
feature where players can enter battlegrounds fighting alongside other players against game-controlled opponents. So instead of fighting against other PvPers, potentially people who have been playing this mode much longer than you, who have better PvP gear than you, and are going to wipe the floor with you, you'll be able to fight against some opponents who you'll have a little bit more of a satisfying win rate against. And because of that, we think this will be a pretty good on-ramp for people who are PvP curious, who want to get into PvP, but feel like there's just too much of a steep on-ramp because of those.
It's still good. Yeah, it's PvE, but it's still good, guys.
This is going to start with a couple battlegrounds that players will be able to jump into with training grounds, and we'll see where we go from there.
So it's not PvP, but it trains people for it.
Broadly speaking, I think one of the challenges is it can be very daunting to get in, as the question implies. If you're getting into PvP for the first time, you're in some cases jumping into a pool that's filled with sharks who've been doing this for 20 years. But there's so much, there's nothing quite like World of Warcraft PvP.
True.
And that style of conflict, that style of combat. And so really our philosophical approach as we move into Midnight to really try to rejuvenate and grow the scene is to broaden the base of that pyramid so we can kind of lift the whole thing up and help all levels of it, whether you are the most hardcore person competing for titles at the end of every season. Everyone will be better served if people feel like they can actually enter this community for the first time and discover.
I have a different theory on how they can do that, but I think it's a good concept.
The PvP player and creator known as Supatees had the most highly upvoted question on our forums.
Okay.
He wrote, in the War Within, we saw major reward improvements and restructuring for Mythic
I saw this.
which improved participation. Are there plans to look at the current reward structure for PvP, such as rating cutoffs or additional rewards?
This is a good question.
There are definitely plans to look at this. One thing I can say that will be changing at launch in Midnight and the first season of Midnight is that top tier cutoff coming down from 2,400 to 2,300 for those rewards and titles. I think looking at how MMR has evolved and how the rating ecosystem has played out, that's been a bit too exclusive even for some of our best players. Broadly speaking, beyond that, I think there's a lot more that we would like to do with the system. That's not necessarily going to be happening right at launch.
So Gladiators 2.3.
But if you look, for example, at what we changed with Mythic Plus and new titles and new structure and things like the resilient keystone system in War Within, those changes came in War Within patches. So as we look to PvP and its evolution over the course of Midnight, that's definitely an area that we want to focus on.
Got another one.
Okay.
Sandint on the WoW forums wrote, will War Mode receive more well-needed attention? More activities like zone objectives or rotating events? Maybe a free-for-all treatment?
Yeah. We're adding a whole new area into the Voidstorm zone, a giant War Mode area which reflects the same space as the Slayer's Rise Battleground. If you watched the deep dive video, you got to see that. That Slayer's Rise is also made manifest in the zone itself. And this is, if you've played War Mode in past expansions, you know that we've taken a couple War Mode areas and had maybe one in each zone, one in Ringing Deeps and one in Isle of Dorn, where PvP, when you enable War Mode, you'll have some special, unique activities. We took all those and glumped them all together right into this Slayer's Rise area, and so there's going to be a huge PvP playground if you have War Mode on, be able to do lots of cool world-class activities, reasons to just kill one another, and even if you don't have War Mode enabled, there'll still be PvP-themed content for folks doing world quests up in that area.
Why would you not have War Mode enabled?
Yeah, true.
That's a very good question.
Very true.
Because you're afraid of sharks.
Yeah, it's sharks.
Okay, all right, thank you. So
those darn sharks, man.
26 on Reddit asked a question that we saw a lot of, which is, when can we expect reputations from expansions prior to Shadowlands to become Warbound reputations?
So yeah, taking full accountability here. I know that when we rolled out the warbands, we said that we were going to work our way backwards through reputations. We haven't made progress as quickly as we would have liked. We got some of the Shadowlands reputations, but not the Covenant ones. This is something we're going to pick up and resume. I can't commit to a definite timetable, but in the long run, we don't want this, internal disparity between how different expansions reputations are handled, and we'll continue to start with the most recent and work our way backwards.
Thank you.
Soon. Yeah, they're working on it.
Blue Sky said, War Within is the first WoW expansion without a legendary. Can we expect anything in Midnight, or is the team taking time to reevaluate what place legendaries have in the modern game?
That's a good question.
I think we always want to avoid things seeming formulaic, where it's like, okay, you can expect it's a new season, there's going to be a new legendary, this is how it's going to work. Legendaries should always remain special. They should feel like these are items that have clear stories behind them and feel worthy of that special orange color.
That's fair.
And yes, we're also looking always at issues with how they're awarded. We want to make sure they feel special, but also don't turn into something where it feels bad or grindy because they feel required if you want to be competitive. There's a fine line to walk there. There aren't currently any planned for the first tier of Midnight, but as we, face certain foes down the line,
Okay.
it may make sense for some of the items that they yield to have that
Okay.
orange color, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
I want to ask some lore questions.
Lore.
So, as Mira asked, will we be getting any more background information on story regarding Lyrath Windrunner? Sorry. Any of the other Windrunner family members, perhaps?
Absolutely. I don't want to talk too much about patches, but certainly in Midnight, as we go into the Spire, you will have the opportunity to really get a brother's view of his sisters and an opportunity to learn a lot more about what happened and what's happening in that place. And I mentioned before, we're going to see the sisters.
And Grody Toady on Blue Sky wants to ask about trolls. So here come all the names. Where is Vol'jin's story in all of this? I'm hoping we find a way to weave Vol'jin, Talanji, Zul'jin, Rokan, Zul'Jan, and Zul'Jara into a cohesive story about troll unity or cooperation.
Well, right out of the gate
Okay.
in Midnight,
a lot.
you're not going to see
All
that combination of trolls, but you will see a combination of some trolls as we continue into patches and move forward. We're very much focused on what's going on with the trolls as well as what's going on with the Blood Elves. They have not always been on the best of terms for reasons. And there's definitely a story to be told about their relationship, and all of those folks come into that story.
Groxy on Blue Sky said, Midnight sees the Paladin forces of Azeroth fighting back the Void at the Sunwell. Can we hope to see more lore about the Tauren and Azeroth's sun god Ansha? Eyes of the Earth Mother told us how he and Elune slash Musha fought possibly the Void in ancient Azeroth.
Well, we are going to hang out with Desco a little bit in the Eretor's Journey portion of our campaign at Midnight. And I feel like we certainly are going to look at how the Tauren view their mythologies, perhaps later in The Last Titan.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Let's talk about add-ons.
Nice.
The WoW creator Polka TV said, given the upcoming removal of many boss mod tools, how do you plan to preserve the intended difficulty of encounters once these tools are no longer available?
So yeah, this is a great question. For some extra context, I think folks are going to see in the next day or two, as some of the media interviews we've done in the last day go out, that we are rolling out changes to the add-on API with the launch of Midnight. And so that is going to remove the ability for add-ons to read in real time combat state and combat information.
It's happening.
And one of the big reasons why we're doing this with the launch of a new expansion is so that we can really build all of our combat, our encounters around that expectation, around this new ecosystem.
Holy crap, it's
As we've been
happening.
discussing over the course of the year, really the main goal with this shift is to create a level playing field where external tools are no longer felt to be required in order to engage in the content, at a competitive level. And also to shift some of the things that we are testing when it comes to difficulty, maybe away from Twitch reactions and how quickly you can run to the circle or diamond marker that your add-on told you to run to, and rather to more of the collaborative coordination that have traditionally marked cooperative PvE in WoW. But the goal is to keep difficulty largely the same. In terms of how many pulls it takes to down a boss for your guild, whether you are aiming for ahead of the curve and defeating Heroic, or whether you're pushing into Mythic or whatever else, overall it should take you about the same amount of time to accomplish what you're used to accomplishing. It's just that difficulty may come in slightly different places. Without
I think this
add-ons
is good.
to solve mechanics for you in real time, it may well be the case that we just need to give you a couple more seconds to get into place, or that there should be one fewer ad to interrupt, or what have you. We are going to be rolling out, we're actually going to be launching Alpha with a raid boss available for testing early on. We have a ton of native improvements to the UI, like boss timers, boss alerts, so you can see a timeline of upcoming boss abilities, nameplate improvements,
That's
cooldown manager
insane.
improvements, and more. to, again, kind of create a unified experience that's baked into the UI. But the goal at the end of the day is for difficulty to remain where it was, and we will be making tuning changes in alpha and beta, as well as, of course, once these encounters are live, to make sure that things are landing in the right place and players still feel well equipped to overcome the challenges in front of them.
Following that, Sped Bros on Reddit asked, what is your plan for upkeep and development of these now built-in add-ons?
Yeah, so I think the functionality that we're pulling into the base UI is something that, as always, we're going to be evolving in response to player feedback. Again, part of why we're very excited to get people having a look at these right at the start of alpha is so that we have the entirety of the alpha and beta cycle to iterate on them before midnight launches. And then, of course, as always, even after the game is live, we're going to continue to add functionality based on the player requests and the feedback that we're receiving.
Ossicrond on the WoW forums said, sculpting your UI over the years is almost like working on a classic car. Fine-tuning with different fonts, color palettes, and even different types of glow alerts. What is the depth of the available customization, and are there plans to expand it in the future?
That's a good question.
So there's a couple of facets to this question. First off, couldn't agree more that I think UI customization and using add-ons to tailor the aesthetic of a UI, how information is presented and where it's presented, I think are one of the hallmarks of the WoW experience and really one of the strengths of the game for going on 21 years now. There are no plans to eliminate or remove that. The approach we've taken in changing the way the add-on API works really is just focused on access to that real-time information. There'll be details coming out very soon from our UI engineering team on exactly how this works. But whereas in the past, when we have restricted aspects of what add-ons can do, we tend to just kind of wall off sections of our UI and say add-ons can't touch this at all. But when it comes to things like nameplates or unit frames and the like, that would have been an unacceptable approach here because that aesthetic customization is so essential. So there's a brand new system that's been created where essentially pieces of information about what's going on in combat are put in the black box. And add-ons can paint that box pink or yellow or green or make it bigger or smaller, but what they can't do is know exactly what's inside the box and use that to drive logic.
That's kind of cool. That's interesting, yeah.
The new UI functionality that we're adding, whether it's improved nameplates or whatever, have extensive customizations in terms of size, shape, location, aesthetic, all of the edit mode functionality and more. But we have no intent of pulling back in any way from the aesthetic customization that add-ons have always offered.
W.
To the chase.
Nice.
Sulfur on the WoW forums asked, does this mean that existing add-ons like Deadly Boss Mods, Plater, or Details are going to break?
They will change significantly. I think certainly, day one, if you're logging into alpha and you try to enable them, I do not believe they will work due to changes in the API, but that's standard for any new expansion release. We are inviting the authors of a vast range of add-ons into our first week of alpha, so that's going to be coming up in just the next few days, to get their hands on these changes, to give us feedback about how we can better support their ongoing development. But yes, when it comes to the specific ability to read and process combat information and use that to drive logic, that is going to be changing, and that will affect those add-ons.
Okay, give me one more. This comes from Herrix on the WoW forums. Herrix said, what are the plans regarding improvements to the default raid frames? In the effort to reduce the need for add-ons, raid frames are a major pain point for healers, where the default Blizzard raid frames are basically unusable without at least some external modification.
So yeah, we also have improvements coming to raid frames, definitely with healers in mind. If you're, let's say, a Resto Druid who wants to be able to see all of your HOTS on a target, that's something that we agree is very important and needs to be baked into the default functionality. Same with encounter designers calling out major buffs and debuffs and things that you need to know in an encounter, whether you're a healer or just a raid leader wanting to keep tabs on the state of the encounter that way. And of course, as mentioned earlier, add-ons will still be able to customize the look and the feel and the size and the overall presentation of raid frames. There just won't be certain functionality that is driving logic based on whether you happen to have a certain debuff or not. But all the rest should still be available.
E. Chow on Blue Sky has a couple of questions. Given the connection to the Army of Light, the Sunwell and Blood Elves in general being their main rival in the Burning Crusade, will we see Draenei play any sort of role? Also, will Quel'Thalas be, with Quel'Thalas being part of the main world now, will there be any updates to Forsaken Lands?
Back to the lore.
So
All right.
the Draenei, obviously will be part of the fight, part of the battle that we're waging against the Void. But this chapter is focused on the Blood Elves and the Blood Elves struggle with some trolls, and we're gonna really be leaning in there more than we are with the Draenei. Opportunities, will come up for the Draenei to have their moment in the light, as it were.
Yeah. And as it goes for like changes to Forsaken Lands, well, there's some minor changes as we've added Quel'Thalas and Zul'Aman into the main body of the Eastern Kingdoms to connect them in. So there's a tunnel in the Forsaken Lands that does connect it in. We are going to see some Forsaken characters as well. We're actually going to be working with a little bit of a deep cut, but Alansis Fowl, the Archpriest, is going to be a character who appears and has a couple interesting interactions and chats with Eretor and Liadrin and others. So we're going to continue to build out Forsaken story as we continue.
Yeah,
Nice.
Looking at how this is playing out and will continue to, I think we're very excited by some of the reception we've heard from Gamescom onwards about the changes to Silvermoon, Eversong, and more. Honestly, there was a bit of anxiety internally about the idea of revisiting an old location as for one of our zones, whether some players would view that as like somehow lesser than coming up with a brand new place.
I kind of like it, but I'm a classic guy.
See this full splendor of Silvermoon, get a chance to revisit Eversong and what it's become all these years later. I think the excitement around that really excites us too, because we'd love to be able to tell more new stories in some of the iconic locations that resonate throughout everyone's fandom of Warcraft and what Azeroth is about. And so that will mean updating those locations, and I think that's something that we're excited to do more of as we look forward. Of course, The Last Titan will see us going back to Northrend, so that'll be a story for another day.
I think we for sure discovered.
So Last Titan's like
we can tell different
This
stories
is like
when we
TBC
go
in
to
Midnight.
old places and see how characters have changed, see how the spaces have changed. It's been a really cool opportunity to do that in Midnight.
Let's shift to some class talk. Thaxia on Reddit asked, are you planning on adding any new specs that can tank or heal
Good
for
question.
existing classes?
Which
not
no,
right
we
now
would
at
heard
Midnight.
it. Yeah.
I think Devourer, Demon Hunter, and that new range DPS spec for them is our focus right now. But I think we've seen whether it's this or whether it's augmentation, there is excitement around the idea of established classes getting new specs, and so that is something I think we are likely to explore as we look to the future.
Zerotics on Reddit asked, throughout the War Within, some classes and specs received visual updates, and as a monk player, the update to Vivify was very appreciated. Are there any other classes or specs that can be revealed to be getting updated visuals in Midnight?
Yeah, there's a couple really cool Apex talents. So Apex talents are the new talents you'll be able to learn at the bottom of your spec tree, and a lot of these have some fantastic visuals. Ones that jump out to me are the augmentation, where you summon a bronze dragon version of yourself from the future to fight alongside you for a little bit. The Frost Mage one as well. You summon a Hand of Frost that chases down your target and attack them. And so these are some of the new abilities that are going to get some new custom visuals. As far as like looking back at older visuals, as was the case with Vivify, this is something that we tend to do as we continue to build smaller patches. Most of our efforts for Midnight was building all the new stuff, but then as we continue building out the game, we look to the future. This is where we look back at, as we did with Vivify, find abilities where we can raise the floor and say, like, okay, this one has aged not as gracefully as the rest of
I
our
must be
visuals,
old.
and we
I
can
want
bring
the
it up
old
to
animations back for like everything, or at least a
Following
checkbox,
that,
man.
We found
I'm
a question
old, dude.
from Nihenna on the German forums, and Nihenna asked, will the Void/Light topic be picked up in any additional class specs in the future? For example, Sunwell effects for a Holy Paladin, or perhaps Void powers for a Warlock?
I don't know about Void Warlocks quite yet, but we do have a existing Void themed spec, the Shadow Priest, my beloved Shadow Priest, which has a new ability, Tentacle Slam, which replaces Shadow Crash, and it is a giant voidy tentacle that slams down in a line in front of you.
That's
It has
sick.
a
It's like
similar
Ilalao.
AoE component, but a lot more of a classic voidy Shadow Priest idea to it. We also have on one of our Apex talents, the Discipline Priest has Void Shield, which replaces your Power Word Shield with a Void-themed shield. So there are places where the Void and Light are leaking into our class design.
Going back to the support roles, Neo on the EU Spanish forums asked, can we expect anything new regarding the support role in Midnight? Will it be expanded to other classes? Is it considered that it maybe didn't work as expected for augmentation, and perhaps that just becomes a normal damage or healer?
So we're not planning on currently expanding it to other classes, but we're also not planning on changing augmentation to just fit into the existing niches. I think there's a lot of excitement around the idea of support, and I think we've seen players embrace that fantasy. I think we are still iterating on evolving that specialization and getting to a place where we can find a happy medium, where it can kind of realize that fantasy and be effective as someone who bolsters the strength of your allies without also becoming so effective that it feels required in groups and kind of limits composition diversity. I think if we're able to achieve that, hopefully when we're able to achieve that, I do think we would like to look to what other ideas might apply a different fantasy to executing that concept.
I want to switch to the topic of delves.
Delpo?
The WoW content creator True Villain Manny said, with delves integrated into the story, will there be certain scenarios that are locked in as we level? And will there be additional story in those alternative scenarios with delves?
Yeah, as we move through the campaign in Midnight, we will be entering delves with specific goals in mind. And that particular variant of the story will have the objectives that we need to accomplish as we go through them. As always, our delves will have multiple variants to play through with different stories occurring. So yes, we will continue to use delves in this way, and look for opportunities to continue to build quest content that enters delves.
So let's go inside. Varteris on the WoW forums said, will delves have even greater variety than in the War Within? Maybe a randomized puzzle to solve, a race, a whole new set of abilities?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that delves are changing. We have a new follower, Valera Sanguinara, is going to come along, and she's going to mix things up. She's takes delves a little bit more seriously than Bran does, and a lot more stabbily as well. We also have some outdoor delves that are going to take place in outdoor spaces, and so this will just change up not only the vibe of the space, but your ability to move around, because you'll be able to use your ground mounts to get around. We're also just taking a look at the mechanics that we're using in delves in Midnight. So you can announce now that Midnight does not have any underwater delves. It also does not have any delves with a mechanic where you have to, say, pick up a candle or a totem and throw it ahead and continue doing that on a continued basis.
That's nice, yeah. Good.
Folks, let us know how they felt about those, and we're not moving forward with those designs.
Nice.
So Relentless on the EU Spanish forums asked a version of a question we got a lot. And Ian, what's stopping the World of Warcraft development team from doing a world revamp? Could we get a world revamp?
I think, the idea of revamping everything at once is a terrifying one, frankly. But I think, as touched on earlier, we definitely want to tell new stories in iconic locations. And in doing that, we would certainly do much more than just do a fresh coat of paint on the area. We would really reimagine it and bring it into the present day, as we have with Eversong. Our current focus is, of course, on the story that we're telling for the rest of the World Soul Saga. That will touch on some familiar locations. But down the line, I think the lessons we are learning and the experiences we're having, revisiting some locations, open the door to doing a lot more of it.
Saw a very upvoted question from Solera, a French WoW player on X. Solera asked, without giving away spoilers, very important.
Okay.
Does Midnight introduce any completely new elven tribes or expand on lesser known ones? Maybe the Kelderai?
Without spoilers.
Without spoilers.
That's a tough constraint.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's right.
Nice.
I don't think it's spoilery to say we're going to be learning a lot about the elves and the elves' relationships with one another, and that would include Quel'Drai.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Zoris on the EU Spanish forums asked, with the Devourer specialization, all Demon Hunter abilities will use void effects and icons, even those shared by all three specializations. Has there been any consideration of extending this aesthetic customization to other classes?
So I think philosophically and narratively, what a Void Demon Hunter represents, what a Devourer Demon Hunter represents, is one who, rather than harnessing and channeling Fel energy, is channeling Void energy to turn it against those who originally wielded it. And so that is going to transform a wide range of their abilities. On the other hand, when we look at, let's say, a Fire Mage or a Frost Mage, they're not forsaking the arcane when they become a Fire Mage.
That's fair.
And so
That's fair.
Blink is still an arcane spell, and Counterspell is still an arcane spell, and so forth. And so I think when we look at other classes, we generally like to look at that broad base of multiple, areas of focus. And just because you specialize in one thing doesn't mean that that transforms all of the others. That said, touching on some earlier questions, when it comes to glyph spell customizations and other things that players may want to customize the look and feel of their abilities, there's always an opportunity there.
Another highly upvoted question all over the place. I'll take the version of this question from Navarel on the EU German forums. Would you consider replacing the ready-made group in follower dungeons with characters from the player's warband?
Definitely something we are considering.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Not something we're going to be able to deliver for Midnight, but ever since the introduction of both warbands and follower dungeons, this idea, this request
That is a cool
has popped
idea.
up. It's something that we're excited about internally as well. There's some technical hurdles to kind of pull that information down in real time and make it work, but it's something we do want to deliver down the line.
Ian's not lying about technical hurdles. There were multiple technical hurdles in the way. We're actually jumping over one of them with Training Grounds, where we're changing the way that some of those game-controlled characters or bots are built to be building Training Grounds in this way gets us one hurdle closer to being able to do what you're asking for.
There are so many people on this development team that I would call technical hurdlers. Engineers, that's just what they do. They jump over hurdles.
Nice.
Maria, Silo on the WoW forums asked, will there be new mini-game type quests in Midnight?
Yes, there will be. We actually have a
More
new
turtles to the
mechanic,
water.
that was
Nice.
created for Zulaman specifically, where you will do some, underwater stuff. But it's quite fun.
I don't like underwater stuff,
man. Style. You're gonna be going fishing troll style.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to
That's a
catch fish
revelation.
underwater.
I like that.
Interesting.
While we're revealing things, Musselton on the WoW forums asked, I'm extremely excited for the Heronir. Can you share more information on their druid forms?
Well, conveniently, if you watched the deep dive, you saw a flash of those. Fundamentally, they all have quills to throw back to sort of the Heronir. But the tank form is a pangolin bear with sort of bat-like ears.
They all sort of got those ears.
Yeah, they
right?
got the ears and the quills. And we have a wolverine for our feral spec. We have an quilled owl-like sort of boomkin. But best of all has got to be the swimming form, the swimming travel form, which is an axolotl.
A what?
Axolotl.
With quills.
We're all going to learn how to say axolotl.
Yeah,
What is
I
that?
probably said it wrong, but yeah.
No, I think you got it right. I think you did.
Okay, cool.
The reveal of the Heronir led to a very common question.
Bro.
And a version of that question that I want to ask you came from Racktoner on Reddit. Can you explain the decision-making
Nice.
process for which races to make playable races?
A lot of this comes down to narrative. There's no secret that we started talking to the Heronir in the War Within, and this was not a coincidence either. We wanted to build a familiarity with Orwena, with her crew, so you'd understand who these characters are when they do eventually become playable characters, as we've added them in Midnight. And of course, Midnight is part of a 3-chapter saga. We're in the middle chapter now. The Heronir are going to be a big, important part of this story, and this is why we chose to fold them in.
I feel bad often being the bearer of bad news in these conversations, but I know that it's not lost on us that there are widespread requests from players who would love to be a Sethrak or an Ethereal or the like. And part of the question there is, as Paul said, narratively, does it make sense for this faction to really join the Alliance and Horde if they're cosmic, extraplanar, or more neutral by nature? But the reality of it is also, from a production perspective, one of the things we grapple with is that adding a brand new race to World of Warcraft is one of the most development intensive things we can do, not just in one-time time commitment, but also in the long-term carrying cost for every set of armor we ever make for years and years to follow. And it's something that we have to weigh very, very heavily when we do. Building a race that uses or shares an existing rig, an existing skeleton, if it's an elven race or the like, makes that more straightforward. Again, that's not to say we're never going to add very novel or meaningfully different races down the line, but it's a very high bar for us to clear when we look at how much ultimately it's going to mean that we have to do less of in other places forever. In order
I appreciate the honesty. Yeah.
This additional race alongside.
I appreciate
others.
it.
As I've said to you before, I want Saberon. I will wait. I will be patient. Please give me Saberon. So, Massive Bear on the WoW forums asked, will Haranir be unlockable in the 3 days of early access? I remember Earthen were not.
No, not during the first 3 days. Yeah. So during that early access, we want to make sure that we're letting players who are in that early access be able to play through the campaign and understand what's going on, but not getting any meaningful jumps ahead of anyone else who does not have that early access.
Okay.
Meredith on the WoW forums asked, how is Blizzard progressing in the war against toxicity in terms of the entire game?
Yeah, this is something that's a huge focus for us, and really there's many facets to the question and the discussion. I think when people say toxicity, there's a few different meanings perhaps, or things that they're referring to. Some of it is just the overt, hostile, harmful, antagonistic interactions that may occur online between players. We're always continuing to shore up our reporting tools, improve real-time monitoring, and get to a place where people who are disrupting our game world can be punished and ultimately removed from it if they continue to do that. On the other hand, though, I think sometimes when people talk about a community or a portion of the game feeling toxic, that can arise from just mismatched expectations.
That's fair.
If I am listing a group and I'm trying to run a raid, and I have done that raid 12 times, and I have been through groups that have wiped and learned the encounters, it's reasonable for me as a leader of a pug to only want players who have a certain level of experience.
Thank you. Yeah,
who
someone
have
said
also
it.
been through those learning wipes and can succeed quickly.
Absolutely.
And so someone who is
That's
looking
fair.
to learn may feel like, oh, this is very unwelcoming. This is kind of toxic. Why aren't we? Why am I not welcome here? And ultimately, that's an issue of aligning expectations. And I think there's a lot more that we can do on the pro-social side of things to help people find like-minded players and like-minded groups. There's nothing wrong with wanting to complete something quickly and efficiently. There's also very certainly nothing wrong with wanting to learn and wanting a patient group. Now, if you mix those two groups, there are going to be some conflicts that emerge naturally because of different goals and expectations. So I think a lot of what we're focused on right now is also how we can help players better connect with like-minded individuals so that they can have satisfying experiences where everyone is on the same page, working towards the same goals.
Thank you.
Yeah, good answer.
I want to rip through some more housing questions. We've got several. Will we get to see our alts walking about, or maybe sitting in a chair in our house? Paul?
Yeah, this is, we're looking at a lot of the same technical hurdles we talked about earlier, not only with being able to show players and other players in game, but also the pathing issues that Ian mentioned when it comes to being able to have your pets moving around. And
yeah, that would be pretty rad.
And whatnot. So not planned yet, but something we do talk about as a potential for the future. And I'll take this moment to say that housing is one of those features which is really exciting for us because there are so many cool ways for it to grow. As we've built Midnight and we're sharing housing for the first time, we're going to be looking to you to tell us, what do you want? Is it that we want to see our house? Do we want more features? Do we want more decor? Do we want
decor.
more ways that I can style interior, exterior of my house? So let us know as you continue playing.
Yeah, philosophically, with a feature the size of housing, this is something we've been working on for a very long time to really deliver what players have been expecting and what they deserve. But there comes a point when we're developing, especially a social feature, where we're almost hesitant to take it too far until we can actually share it with the community and understand what people are into, what they're maybe not into so much, what they want more of, what they don't need more of, to make sure that we're really putting our time and our resources in the places that are going to maximize that value for players. And so we're so excited to see people jump in the months ahead in alpha and beta, of course, and then beginning this December on the live servers and see where it goes from there.
Wait, this December?
So here's a very specific question from Alastral on the WoW forums.
Wait, did I hear that right?
For
This
housing and
December.
professions, it was stated that professions through all expansions will be able to craft
Oh,
housing
for
items.
housing. Oh,
Will we
pre-patch.
be
I
able
see.
to use this as a skill catch-up for the past expansions? For example, could a leather worker start at Wrath Leatherworking Skill 1 and craft Wrath-themed housing items to get all the way to level 75?
I mean, these will give skill ups for sure. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how many of them will be available at level 1, for example. They may be tuned based on how elaborate the piece of decor is, but in general, yeah, once you get the level that you're able to build these things, then you continue to use them to level up.
So many very specific requests. I want to just give you this one. It comes from Spara on the WoW forums. Is it possible to add a functional bookshelf to player housing that could store and display collected in-game books? I have a lot of those.
Okay, so this is
That
what I'm
would be
talking
kinda
about.
cool.
That, like,
Yeah.
once you share housing with the world, then 1,000 cool ideas come out, and so we'll start gathering up all these cool ideas and say, what can we do next? I can confirm there will be bookshelves. Whether those bookshelves will be functional, no, not at least to start. But this is a really cool idea for a collection that we're gonna, take back to the team.
Yeah, that would be rad.
And a couple more. Ian, Devaneer on Reddit wrote, what is the minimum player limit for a private or guild neighborhood? What happens if you make a private neighborhood with the minimum amount of people and then some of them go away?
So this is something that's still a bit in flux. I think our current thinking is that just like signing a guild charter, you'll need 10 players to charter a private neighborhood. And that's for a couple of reasons. Part of it is, in order for neighborhood systems endeavors to really function optimally, there's a certain number of players that are going to be expected to really drive the system. But also a piece of it is just server performance. Using an extreme example, if literally every single player online had their own personal neighborhoods, that would be potentially millions of simultaneous entire districts that need to get spun up, trying to make sure the servers don't melt here. And so striking a balance between what's going to be a good social experience, but also recognizing that players have friend groups of various sizes, and we want to be as flexible as possible. I think if we're able to lower that number from where we're starting, it's something we would aim to do as we see how the tech side of it unfolds.
Cool.
I saw an upvoted question on Reddit from a player named Backstabbeth, and this is a question I have myself.
Fairly a trustworthy fellow.
Very much. Will there be a list of collections and their sources for housing materials before housing goes live so that we can begin to start hunting for those items, maybe reputation, achievement requirements? I'd love to know what I already have or what I'm close to having.
A ton of that is going to be visible in the alpha build coming up in just a day, but we'll have a blog summarizing it so you
Alpha
don't need
tomorrow.
to go trawling for the information, and that way everyone can get a head start on checking off those achievements that you may have missed.
Let's come back to a couple of fun questions before we go here. Bail Samel on the WoW forums asked, are we getting a capybara, Loa? There are capybaras in the Yamani screenshots. The people yearn for a capybara, Loa.
Well, conveniently, there is one. His name is Philo, the capybara
okay.
Loa of children.
Oh, nice. And I hope he has a prominent headdress.
Absolutely, and a glorious necklace.
That's perfect. Loa's should be very well outfitted, I think. Finnerfin on the WoW forums asked, could we see the return of class quest lines? Legion was great, and it was fun to have a unique experience questing on alts.
Yeah, class quest lines come up really often as something people are excited about. We certainly do want to look more at, expanding on classes. We had a lot of fun doing the Warlock one, for example, not too long ago. But most recently, the best way for you to play some class quest lines, if you never played them, has to do with our lore walking. Because where we had restrictions, for example, on the Xalatath story, previously, a lot of people didn't know anything about Xalatath and the knife. And by playing that lore walking, they had the opportunity to play that portion of
Shadow Priest quest was sick.
Quest line. So we're hoping that as we build more lore walking, you'll have that opportunity to see some of that. But this is certainly an area that the quest and narrative team would be thrilled to do more of.
Good. It's our last question.
Final one.
And I cobbled this together from versions of this question that I found everywhere. I want to give a shout out to some of the people that I borrowed this from. Xaryu, Simplejack, Martian, Zuburius on our forums, all asked versions of this. Ian, how will player power progression be updated in Midnight, especially regarding Valor Stones?
Good question.
So the way the upgrade system's played out over the last couple of expansions, I think we're happy with the sort of granular incremental progression that complements that spiky randomness of loot drops. But there is, and we agree with player feedback that we've heard, potentially one too many moving pieces and a bit too much complexity in the current system. So I can announce that Valor Stones as a currency will be going away in Midnight.
Okay.
You're already needing to gather the crests that you need, and that should be sufficient. We're also looking to streamline the system a little bit and more clearly pair individual crest tiers with appropriate gear upgrade tracks so that there's potentially less confusion about what
That's
crest
nice.
matches to.
I'll take that.
Anything further, Paul?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, yeah. Super excited.
We're over here pumping fists.
Yes, absolutely.
Very excited.
Rip Valor Stones.
And on that note,
That's our time. Thank you, Ian, Paul,
Wow.
Maria. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you to everyone watching along. We've got Midnight Alpha testing starting very soon. We can't wait to see you there and welcome you home.
Midnight Alpha Hope.
thank you.
All right. Bro, that was so hard not to pause, man. Holy crap. I haven't done too many reacts to a live stream. Normally I would just pause and say what I think and then pause and say what I think and like over and over. But I didn't want to pause because it was live and then I would just be like minutes behind and like this and that. So like I wrote some stuff down. The first thing is probably one of the biggest things, and that was the add-on purge. Okay. The add-on purge, some people in the chat were having questions on what this actually meant. So combat add-ons like details reading combat log or not predicting, but knowing when the next PvE encounter is about to happen or the next mechanic in the encounter is about to happen, I guess. All of this is going to be eliminated, right? Like you won't be able to do that anymore. But it's going to be baked in to the default UI. So what that means is kind of leveling the playing ground for people with and without add-ons. So in the past, it's like, okay, if I want a heroic raid or mythic raid or whatever, or even mythic plus, I have to download big wigs, little wigs, daily boss mods, all this stuff to even start. And without that, you're just gonna die. Now it's like you don't need to download anything. You should be able to go in baseline with the info on your screen, kill the boss, right? Without any external add-on for that. I think this is a massive W. I think this is great. I'm someone who has never raided with deadly boss mods, big wigs, little wigs, none of this. So I'm actually kind of curious how I'm going to like it myself. Because I'm used to just having completely clear UI and kind of just looking around at what other people are doing or like trying to figure out the fight and then memorize it. 5 or 10 wipes in, you kind of know what's good and then you just feel it out and send it. That's what I've always done. So it'll be really interesting for me to actually have a timer for the first time ever. Like it'll be kind of crazy. So I'm excited. That's what the add-on purge means. And yeah, we'll see how it plays out. The next thing is that I wanted to talk about was PvP for a second. Okay, so they started with the sentiment that they wanted to create a PvP environment for new players to get into the game so they can build up the player base from the bottom up. So there's more players that get invested in PvP so they can get new good players over time, right? I agree with that line of reasoning. I agree with the logic. You need to start from the bottom up. You need to get new players in. If you don't have new players, the game eventually dies, and you need new players in PvP. Sure, yes, I agree with that. But I don't necessarily agree with how they're doing it per se. So their plan is you're going to fight with other players against PvP bots like AI. So it's essentially PvE, but they're going to interact and behave like a PvP target would. Like they're going to jump around and fake cast and stuff like that. So it's not a bad idea. I think it's actually kind of fine. But the concept that I've talked about before on stream that I think, it's just a theory. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to say like this is the only way to do it, but I think one of the things that would be very successful is when I talk to all my OG PvP friends and I ask them how they got into PvP, how they got into arena, how they met their arena partners, how they developed an interest, it always comes back to one or two things. Dueling outside the city is probably number one. You just dueling people, right? And then maybe like world PvP or battlegrounds. But I want to focus on the number one, dueling outside the city. I've talked about this before, but I believe the way to bring back PvP is to focus on the smallest incremental part of PvP. 1v1s. You can't break it down any more than that. You can have 2v2, 3v3, 5v5, RBGs, 10v10s, 40v40s, world PvP, but you can't break it down more than a 1v1. So you break it down to a smallest possible unit, 1v1. And you make dueling great again. You make it fun. Right now, let's be honest, dueling sucks. Dueling has sucked for about a decade now. It's just really not fun because every class heals too much for it to be an exciting thing. You just have like this 10-minute back and forth. Like it's pretty bad, right? Bring back dueling to bring back PvP. That's my theory. My theory is you make dueling great again, so where people want to actively collect and 1v1 each other, where it's addicting and fun. Then you meet friends to then go into arena with. It's kind of an old school line of thought, but that's kind of my theory, right? Make dueling great again. To make dueling great again, you probably need to reduce self-healing by a large amount. You need to actually balance 1v1s. But my theory is that if you balance 1v1s, arena becomes better. If you balance 1v1s, battlegrounds become better. Because with decently balanced 1v1s, you have closer to balance 3v3s and 5v5s, 10v10s, etc. So that's my thought on that. I don't think everyone's going to agree with that one, but I just think like it's generally good for me to like put that out there because I think that's as a lifelong PvPer, that's the best concept I could come up with. Make dueling great again. To get new players in to spice up the game, right? You could also make like a dueling area, dueling zone where it instantly resets cooldowns to attract players to go there and spam duel each other and meet new friends, meet new people. Anyway, enough said about that. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is maybe a spicy opinion as well, is a lot of you will probably disagree with this next one, but I mentioned this at the start of War Within, and I still feel the same way now, so I feel like I have to mention it, is delves. Okay, delves I think are a great concept and a great idea, and I actually enjoyed delves, especially the question mark difficulty at the start of War Within. I think they're pretty fun. I like the concept of solo PvE a lot, especially Mage Tower and especially harder solo PvE content. So what I mean by that, like too, is when I was playing RuneScape, one of the things I enjoyed the most is like being able to go into solo PvE content and spam it because that's fun. It's just solo PvE with Mage Tower, solo PvE with like it can be a very fun experience. Anyway, so I like delves. I like the concept. I like the idea of solo PvE. What I don't like, and I might get some pushback on this, is random power-ups and like followers and like stuff like that doesn't make it feel like real PvE. It makes it feel like a mini game. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say with this? It's not, I don't like random like mini game PvE. I want it to be its legitimate own version of like, I'm playing solo PvE and this is a legitimate standalone thing. I said this at the start of War Within. I got a lot of pushback. A lot of people disagreed. But a lot of people in the chat seem to be agreeing now. What they've done with delves, yeah, they're trying to make it like a roguelike, or like with the followers, it's like, oh, well, the follower will spice it up and change how you play and this and that. Like for me, if I wanted like an actual experience, I like how Mage Tower was. You go in with your character, no follower, no random power-ups, no random changes. Like it's your character in a PvE instance and you're trying to defeat the PvE boss. It's a solo environment. That's enough for me, right? So once again, I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me on this one. I don't think delves need to have followers. I don't think it needs Valera. I don't think delves need like random power-ups and this and that. I think a real solo PvE experience is what would make it really great, with some real rewards. Yeah. So I wanted to touch on that as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We covered add-ons, delves, PvP plans, what I think about those. Man, there was a lot. What else did I miss? What do you guys think? Do you guys have any other questions? I feel like that the Prey thing is going to work like that. Yeah, kind of. I'm actually pretty excited for Prey. I think that sounds cool. Housing stuff. Yeah, housing looks all right. Actually, it looks more than all right. Housing looks pretty sweet. Did I like Torghast? I like Torghast. I didn't like that you had to do Torghast. I guess I didn't really like the power-ups in Torghast. I think Torghast, if you didn't have to do it and it was voluntary for cool cosmetics or power-ups, and you didn't have the roguelike power-ups, I think it would have been like way cooler. Prey sounds cool. Yes. When are you coming back to RuneScape? Maybe sometime. What about PvP content, like a Brawlers Guild style 1v1 tournament? Yeah, that sounds cool. I like anything with like 1v1s and stuff. Do you think WoW needs an extraction mode like Legacy? I'd have to think about that one more. You want them to do self-healing and remove followers? Wouldn't that just make some classes worse than others? How would you balance that? Yeah, so reducing self-healing, I think like across the board, unless you're a healer, would make every class weaker. Like you would need a healer, right? Or you need to bandage or potion, but like you wouldn't be able to just spam heal. And this is how the game was historically through classic TBC, Wrath, Kata, a lot of mop. So like, no, it wouldn't really make the class balance any different. It would just change the game. Yeah, followers, I don't like generally like in general. Yeah. Sir Nala, thanks for the tier 1. What else is happening? What if there's an arena in the main city and inside you see random arena matches going on? That's cool. I like that concept with dueling a lot. Like you can have like wager duels and like watch the duels play out. I think that's cool. I think that'd be really cool. Glad being at 2300. Okay, so this is a good conversation. Glad being at 2300. I know a lot of you think this is really stupid and weird. For me, it's just a number. If 2300 is just as hard to obtain as 3000 was back in the day, it doesn't matter. It's just a number. It's relative to how difficult it is to obtain. So glad being at 2300 doesn't mean anything in itself at all, actually. What matters is how hard is it to get 2300, which we don't really know. So my knee-jerk response is, okay, let's see how hard it is. It's like not anything to get upset about yet. Saline, thanks for the prime. Facepull, thanks for the prime. They haven't addressed button bloat, or am I wrong? Yeah, they didn't really talk about it too much. They talked a little bit about like streamlining like certain stuff. But yeah, I guess they didn't talk about button bloat specifically. Thoughts on CC changes? Like, what do you mean? Like the ones from like 2 years ago? I think that was the worst change that World of Warcraft has ever seen. And I said that before it came out. I said that after it came out, and I say that 2 years later. I think it's the worst singular change that WoW has ever seen. And I guess I should specify in PvP. Mage Tower had followers too. No, I remember Tank and Healer had followers. In Mage Tower? It's been a long time, but no, I don't think so. Did you have a Tank and a Healer in Mage Tower? It's been a long time, but I feel like I remember like kiting as a mage. If I got hit, I would like die. Mage Tower had followers. Oh, only for healing specs. I see. So like if you're a DPS, you didn't. So if you're a healer, you did. I see. Yeah, I never did as a healer. All right, more rapid fire questions. What was the worst singular change in World of Warcraft? What change were you talking about? They reduced PvP across the board for things like Fear, Polymorph, Blind, like Cyclone, or not, I guess not Cyclone, but like pretty much every CC in the game across the board was reduced in duration. About 2 years ago, I want to say, something like that. Maybe like 3 years ago now. And before it came out, I said this is going to be the worst possible. This is going to be the worst change in history. And then it came out, and I felt that way, and then I still feel that way. Yeah, I think it's terrible. I think it's one of the worst changes in history, or the worst change in WoW PvP history. Yeah. When Anniversary is a permanent TBC era, will it only be arena played? We don't know if there's going to be a permanent TBC era. I would actually expect there not to be. I would expect Annie to go to Wrath, but I don't know. New CC changes, Brew? What's going on in the CC changes? What are you most excited for Midnight? Honestly, bro, I'm excited to check out the new raid. I'm excited to do all of the Mythic Plus, check out the new Delves, and Prey. So all of the, like, whether it's World PvE, Solo PvE, Small Scale PvE, or Large Scale PvE, all of those are like very interesting to me. I had a ton of fun in Morathan, pushing Mythic Plus, pushing Mythic Rating. I want to do all that again. Like I really enjoyed it. And I think Midnight is just a step up in like every single way. I think besides that, housing, but like, I don't care that much about housing, but I'm still kind of curious about it. Do you see the Season 1 Dungeon Pool? Yes, looks good. Miss the Prey breakdown. It's kind of like Slayer from RuneScape a little bit, where like you get a prey task and you go out in the world and you're going to be hunted down and you have to kill it, but there's like nightmare difficulty. Will I ever go for rank 1 title and retail again? No, I don't think so. Do you think you'll ever go for cutting edge in any patch? What is cutting edge? Is that mythic? That's the mythic last boss kill before the patch ends? Oh, top 100 last boss mythic kill? Probably not, but never say never. Like last time what we did is we did like a mythic viewer raid where we got a bunch of Giga Chad viewers and we just did a mythic raid and we did like 4 out of 8 mythic with the viewers. And like, I think that was really cool. Would I ever do that for a full clear? Never say never, maybe. If I had a magic wand, what one thing would I change for retail? Retail, like it's hard to say what one thing. And here's my biggest point, bro. Like me as a player, I've gravitated to like really enjoying Classic WoW. So I'm looking forward to Classic Plus more than like anything, right? Just to be very transparent, I'm looking forward to Classic Plus. I don't think they should make retail into Classic Plus. It should be 2 separate things. I think you should have retail going in its brand new modern direction, and then you should have Classic Plus, and there should be 2 products, and you as a consumer can choose, do you want the classic product or the modern one? And I think that's fine. So if I could wave a wand to make retail into what I wanted, I wouldn't actually do it, right? I wouldn't wave the wand because it's not what everyone else wants, right? What everyone else wants, I think, is having a modern WoW, right? Like modern PvEers and people that are really enjoying M+ and raids and all that kind of stuff. I want Classic Plus, and that's fine that it's 2 separate products. So I have like a pretty nuanced answer to that question. Does that make sense? Someone linked this. Follow this thread for crazy PvP changes coming at midnight. Cheap shot now is a 12-second cooldown. Yo, Kellen F, thanks for the 5 gifted. I really appreciate it. But as 2 charges, I don't even know what to make of this. 12-second cooldown, 2 charges. 6 seconds? I'm so confused. Like the thing is, it's hard to understand what this stuff means in isolation. You have to see what it means at scale. And a Cyclone is back for Druids. I think that's good. I mean, it's hard to say. Psychic Shroud for Priests, which grants CC immunity after using Fear. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, there's like, I mean, this stuff seems pretty good. Like some of this seems pretty cool. Searing Glare now replaces Blinding Light and Repentance is now gone. It's hard to, like I said, it's hard to know what this means in isolation. Elite is now rewarded at 2300. Gladiator now requires 2300 rating wins instead of 24. Many major cooldowns have been removed. Icy Veins gone. Shifting Power gone. Void Shift gone. I'm curious how this one plays out. Like I said, it's hard to know in isolation if that's good or bad. Interesting. Galactic Gladiator is the new seasonal title. Galactic. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, so like a lot of crazy changes. Having said all that, oh wait, what's this? CC is now fully DR after 2 applications, down from 3. And the DR timer is now 16 down from 18. Whoa. That's probably what you were talking about. Whoa. Naj, I think, came up with this concept. I saw Naj talking about this for many years now. I'm going to link it to him. They used your idea. It's hard to... I don't know if I like this or not. I think I might... I would also assume CCs are now longer. Like if it's only 2 and not 3, I would assume polymorph would be 8 seconds now instead of 5. You can only do it twice. I think I actually might like this, but this is like a pretty big like change. I mean, this is pretty massive. That's why cheap shot is 6 seconds, right? Because you can only do it twice. I don't know how I fully feel about this without play testing it. But that actually seems pretty good. If there's longer CCs, but less of them, I think that's a step in the right direction. I think more shorter CCs is bad, generally speaking, and less longer CCs is good, generally speaking. Right? If it's a casted longer CC, you had a chance to interrupt it. You could have stopped it. Sure, that's fine. If you're getting spammed with like 1 or 2 second CCs over and over, that's generally bad because you just can't play your character. Over every couple seconds, you just get stopped. And it's like, that's annoying. So in general, I think this is actually good, but I would want to play test it.